Hello, I'm Ann Patton. We're here today to interview Mayor Terry Young about his service to the city of Tulsa. And I am honored to be with him today. I worked with him in his years as mayor. I was an aide to one of the city commissioners, and we did a lot of joint programs together. So I'm pleased to have this opportunity to help people understand what he did and how he did it and why. Are you a native Tulsan? Were you born here and did you grow up in Tulsa?
I am a third-generation Oklahoman, second-generation Tulsan, and I think I was the first second-generation Tulsan to serve as mayor. Lived all my life here.
And what inspired you to go into public service?
A sixth grade meeting as a part of our little civics class with the then mayor of Tulsa, who was Jim Maxwell, who later in life became a very good friend of mine. And he still reigns as the youngest person ever elected mayor. But from that sixth grade class, age of 12, what I wanted to be when I grew up was mayor of Tulsa. And, you know, I guess a lot of folks don't get to achieve exactly what they decide they want to do when they're 12 years old, but managed to do that by way of the county commission, as a matter of fact. I did achieve election to the county government when I was 28 years old, which put me in pretty good proximity as an observer to the mayor's office, and could kind of listen and learn as I was serving in the other capacity, and fairly well prepared me for the time that I was able to run in 1984.
Now, what were the years of your county commission service and then your service as mayor?
I filled an unexpired term when I was first elected in 1976. The then serving county commissioner, Floyd Oakley, passed away suddenly, and I filled the balance of his term. And then I was elected twice more in the middle of the third or the second full term. The opportunity to run for mayor in 1984 came about. I ran and I won.
Why did you decide to run for mayor?
Well, it was a lifelong goal, and the timing seemed right. And we had there were a variety of concerns, actually, that I had at that particular point. One of the things that we will certainly talk about is stormwater management. The city and areas of my county commission district were subject to repetitive flooding. I mean, it could sprinkle outside and people would have a couple of feet of water in their homes in the rural areas of Tulsa County. And when I was campaigning and knocking on doors, the number one thing I would hear would be drainage. So watching the city of Tulsa having these flash floods of 100-year nature or greater every other year, it was one of the reasons that I wanted to run at that time, because I believed that there were better solutions to be had. And then there were a number of other reasons which I outlined in my campaign, and I can proudly say was able to generally achieve in the 2 years that I had in City Hall.
You served in some years when there were a lot of challenges, no question. When you look back on it from this vantage point, what do you recall as some of the greatest challenges?
Well, I had been mayor for 19 whole days when we had the Memorial Day 1984 flash flood, and the challenge, obviously, of recovery from that really does not need to be elaborated upon. I mean, the city was devastated. We had 14 people lose their lives, hundreds and hundreds of homes damaged. But it seemed to me that the entire concept of how we dealt with development with what we called compensatory storage and holding water back until the system has a chance to take care of itself certainly was a great challenge from the standpoint of trying to bring the public along to understand, well, I may be on high ground, why should I contribute in any way to helping these people who bought their houses where they chose and should suffer the consequences. Perhaps the greatest challenge in the entire stormwater management process was changing people's minds where we had broad support. And that was demonstrated in 1985 when we passed, with the third penny sales tax, specific improvements for the stormwater management system.
Other challenges that come to your mind?
Well, we had a street system that was crumbling. My good friend J.D. Metcalf, who was street commissioner and was elected in the same election that I was, we got to work on the street system. We came up with not a new concept, but new to Tulsa, the concept of 5-lane roads, where you would have the opportunity to get out of the way and make a left turn without stopping traffic, getting rid of a lot of those concrete medians, which also increased the cost of constructing streets, but also in maintaining them. We had budgetary challenges too, because it was in '82, I think, prior to my taking office, that the Penn Square Bank collapse occurred, and with that came a recession. We saw people out of work in Tulsa that who had worked at the same place all of their lives, and we dealt with programs in some respects that helped people deal with the crisis of being unemployed, and I think we did a good job with that.
And as you look back, what gives you the most pride now? What are you most proud of?
2 or 3 things. First of all, stormwater management. I mean, we are still the #1 city in the United States in dealing with stormwater management. We are the example. I'm kind of getting chills even as we talk about it, because it's been 25 years and it's only gotten better. A close second is the expansion of the Gilcrease Museum. One of the issues in the campaign was the attitudes of others toward the arts community. The patrons of Gilcrease had raised a good part of the money necessary to expand the museum, and we put in $10 million of revenue sharing money. And for the very first time, prior to that, 80% of the collection at Gilcrease Museum was not on display. And now much more than 50% is on display, and it was a good accomplishment. The Historic Preservation Commission, we ran strongly on trying to help neighborhoods fend for themselves, which was why we also created the Code Enforcement Division. People who spent money painting their houses and keeping their yards, living next door or a couple of doors away from homes that were basically trashed out. Our Code Enforcement Division helped rectify that problem. The Historic Preservation Commission then recognized those areas where we needed to maintain the integrity of, as well as the historic nature of some of those neighborhoods, and gave them some protection against some untoward zoning or construction that might have taken away some of Tulsa's heritage. Then the everyday chores of just being mayor. Boy, I wish we had had cell phones back then. The amount of time you took to travel from one location to another in being the mayor and doing the duties, cutting ribbons or making welcoming speeches, those cell phones would have been handy in being able to return a few more calls than I was able to during those times.
I want to ask you what you think is your greatest legacy, but first let me give you a little personal note. I remember being with you in the Emergency Operations Center the night of the 1984 flood, and we sat there largely helpless because we had so little information. We knew that people were dying as we were there, and we could do so little about it. And I remember you saying, I never want another mayor to go through this. I will do whatever it takes.
Commissioner Metcalf were in the elevator in the City Hall building moving toward a helicopter in which we were getting our first daylight tour after the flood. And I said those words to him. And it was a helpless feeling. I was on the telephone to television stations and radio stations saying there's nothing to worry about, based upon the input that we had at that time. And there were people that were already out of their houses and into their boats, and we did not know it. We had circumstances where the emergency operations director at that time decided he was going to sound the tornado sirens as a warning for more flash flooding, which, as you know, would have sent people to their basements.
Right.
And we had to say, no, we've got to improvise. There was a lot of improvisation and innovation that came from that entire process. One department could not talk to the other department on two-way radios. Mobilizing folks was a great deal of difficulty. But one of the things that I am proudest of is that, you know, I not only started as the weekend weatherman at one of the local TV stations, but I was also public relations director for the American Red Cross here in eastern Oklahoma, and as such was a part of their disaster team. And I had set up disaster communications in flash flood situations 2 or 3 different times in my early career. So, you know, being in the emergency operations center that night was not anything new. I was prepared for it. I was prepared for the things that we did after the flood was over in terms of developing this system. And I think that there might have been some divine intervention that caused me to win that election that year.
Your legacy. I would propose that your legacy might be that you left this city immeasurably safer.
Well, I won't disagree with that. I wanted the Tulsa that I grew up in. I lived in my childhood when downtown was still a vital part of our community. I went to the same downtown movie theaters and soda fountains that my mother went to when she was a kid. And my vision of Tulsa to this very day is the way Tulsa was when Jim Maxwell was mayor. In those days in 1957, 58, and so forth. And in fact, I have one great photo of the skyline of Tulsa, a black and white photo that shows the old NBT building and the Phil Tower building as the 2 tallest buildings in downtown, which is the way I remembered it when it was called America's Most Beautiful City. And that was a part of the reason behind the Code Enforcement Division, is I wanted Tulsa to again become America's most beautiful city. And I held our city departments to the same standards that I held homeowners to. You mow those rights of way and keep those streets clean. And we did it while we were there.
Do you think that the programs you started, I'm thinking specifically of the flood program, do you think that that's had an impact beyond Tulsa?
Oh, I do, very much. It is even in the immediate Oklahoma area. I was when I was with one of the state agencies after my term as mayor. I lived in Midwest City, and I was surprised when I got my first utility bill. There was a stormwater management fee on the bill. And I know darn well that came from our ability to make it clear that that underground system that is so invisible and out of sight and out of mind, the stormwater conveyance system, is in fact a city utility and needs to be maintained just like the sanitary sewer system and our water system.
Are there things you would do differently if you could start over again?
Yes. First and foremost, I think would be to have put someone on my staff that would have dealt with public education, public information. I didn't have many free positions that I could just put my own person of choice in because of the civil service circumstances. I chose to use the position that was typically the public education position for the mayor, a full-time working person that was sort of a deputy mayor and was very valuable. But I missed the point, having come from radio and TV background, thinking that I could do all of the PR myself and the public education myself, and if you needed information on what it is we were doing, I could handle it myself. And I don't think that that was the best decision I could have made. There were so many issues, there were so many complex issues. The things that we were having to deal with necessarily were controversial, and I think that would have made a great deal of difference in the 2 years.
But in terms of the decisions that were made on issues, looking back, you'd bite that bullet and make some of those same hard decisions, you think?
Yes. It would be completely a misstatement to say that I did not make misjudgments. I think every mayor would have to say the same things. But when on those hard issues, those things that had been talked about for a long time and little done about it, I'm as resolved today as I was then that that was the right thing to do, and that we needed to get it done in the time that I had, which was 2 years at that time, and as it turned out, that is what I had. And I'm very, very proud to be able to say that the things that I proposed I would do in the campaign in early 1984, I got done by the time I left in 1986.
So, Mayor Young, thank you so much for being here and talking to us.
Glad to be here and good to see you again.